All right, welcome back to the next episode of the Game or Die podcast. I am your host, Ryan Moore, and in this special episode, I'm going to be talking to my lovely wife, Elizabeth Moore. Say
Hello.
hi. And what we are going to be talking about is a game that's near and dear to her heart, Animal Crossing, the new one that just came out. How long ago did it come out?
The 20th, but I was playing it on the 19th because it came out midnight.
Okay.
And it's New Horizons.
New Horizons. So how many Animal Crossings are there? Well, the first one
was on the GameCube.
On the GameCube.
I never played that one. I played Wild World on the regular DS and then New Leaf on the 3DS.
Okay.
And this is the next one I've played.
Yeah, so this is the fourth one.
Right.
Okay. So
they have all those little ones that I don't know if technically they're
the
Pocket Camp and yeah.
Yeah, so the newest release just came out 3 weeks ago, roughly?
Right.
And how long have you been playing it for so far?
I'd have to double check, but I think I'm at about 100 hours.
That's insane. That's almost more than any game that I've ever actually put into. And you've done that in
and I feel
3
like
weeks.
I'm still in the beginning.
So what drew you to Animal Crossing?
I think I got it because we used to watch X Play or whatever on that.
Tech TV?
Yeah.
And G4?
And they talked about Animal Crossing and I was watching some review of it and I think my brother mentioned that I might like it and I went and got it. I went and got Wild World and I played a little bit, but then I went to Mexico with my sister for 2 months and we had nothing to do. There's no TV, no internet. And so we both played it a lot. And then I just really liked it. I don't know.
So when you are playing it, what were you expecting out of this game leading up to its release?
More of the same, pretty much, because I really like the games. And I think what I really liked about Wild World was when you're doing a lot of bug collecting, fossil collecting, and fish collecting, there's a lot of trivia in it. So they teach you a lot about this stuff. So it's funny information to have in your brain about fish and bugs that you're never going to need.
And this is all technically real life animals, right?
Yeah, these are real life animals. And they brought back a lot of the museum trivia because in New Leaf, they decided to just go put it into the exhibit and Blathers, the museum curator guy, no longer gives you a little snippet of information. So they brought that back and you can also bring him anything to have him tell you about it again.
With Animal Crossing, it's basically an open world, but the world's kind of small, right?
It's very small. And in this one, they added islands that you visit, and they're all different islands. And the last in New Leaf, you had the same island you would visit every time, and it would always be the same. So whatever trees you removed are still gone. And so this time you visit random islands, mainly for mining stuff or getting your materials to build things in this one, which is very different than the previous games. You have to build a lot of items.
When you're playing this game, are you playing as a specific character or do you create your character?
You create your character, and it's a lot better this time around. In the previous games, you would answer questions, and then depending on how you answered them, you'd get this character that just kind of popped up. So that you could have weird hair or some weird little feature, but you didn't get to choose it really. It was kind of, you don't know what's going to give you the weird 3 ponytails or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, you get to pick the hair and features prior to playing, and then even through the gameplay, you can go into a mirror and edit the way your character looks. So that's really cool because you're not stuck with some weird looking character until later in the game where you can update hair or whatever.
Right. When you're creating your character, do you make it look like you or do you have some...
No, I feel like all my avatars have always had white hair.
Mm-hmm.
And
like when I met you?
Yeah. And I tried to make it look more like the Animal Crossing character. They had some features where you can kind of give it more of some me or... What is it? Yeah, the me characters from the Wii.
Yeah.
They had some added features. You can kind of give it a little more of a realistic eye. I wanted it to stay very cartoony. So I chose like the little triangle nose and not a real looking nose. Try to keep her still cartoony, but the hair, I just wanted it to be white and straight.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've been changing it because I have the option to, and I didn't know I would have that. So it
that's
changes.
A new feature?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're in this open world and you have a created character and you can like kind of dress them up and hairstyles and different unique features and all that. What do you do in the game? Because that was one of the things that always it wasn't something that interested me whenever I heard about Animal Crossing, but every time I hear about it, people love it.
It's those villagers that are really, really cute, and then all the characters in the game. They're pretty. They've got little personalities, and they're all in this little town, and they rely so much on you to fix the town for them, so it kind of drives you a little bit. But it's also fun to make your town unique.
Now, you were the mayor in the other ones, right? Are you in...
Not in Wild World. In Wild World, there was a mayor there, and the... I forget if there was anybody else. I think it was just the mayor, the turtle. In the New Leaf, you get dropped off and become the mayor because the mayor has left. And Isabel's your little receptionist lady who tries to take care of everything. In this one, you're very much an islander. Tom Nook is a little more upfront, I guess. I see him way more often than I did in New Leaf, because in New Leaf, I only ran into that place to update the house.
Who's Tom Nook?
Who is Tom Nook? He is I believe, I forget what type of animal he's based off of, a Japanese panda or whatever.
Tanuki?
Yeah. So he's there with his two nephews, Timmy and Tommy. And Tom Nook is an entrepreneur. He is a businessman. And he's decided to purchase an island and create this place that gets really popular and can have where he can start hosting KK Slider and that kind of thing. And so you show up with these two other neighbors that are pre-picked. So two villagers. A lot of people I saw kept restarting the game to get the right villagers. And I never like doing that. I'll just take what they give me. So fortunately, they gave me Kid Cat, which is a cat. And he's got a helmet on. And he's a little gym personality. So he likes to talk about working out all the time. And it was really funny. There was one interaction with him and one of my villagers where he is being called out by that villager to show him his abs, because he's always talking about his abs. And he said he's going to show them off at the next show. And so Rex, the other villager, is like, well, I want to see them. If they're ready, let me just see them now. And Kid Cat is like, no, you got to wait for the the big reveal. And then I was like, okay, I had to side with one of them. So I sided with Kid Cat, and then he's super relieved because it turns out he has no six pack, and he
so he just lied.
He just talks it up all the time, which is what those personalities do. And I like it because all of the villagers have been super fleshed out. I mean, not super fleshed out, but they do really more interactive stuff on your island. So they'll be running around acting like a plane in the corner somewhere when you're trying to fish, and you just see your character fly in, or the villager fly in with his arms spread out. Or they'll sit by trees now and try to fish or catch bugs. And I think in the last one they would walk around with nets or fishing reels, but it's just more it's a little more fun to see them interactive on the island.
Yeah, a lot more like animation types and stuff like that. Right.
And I'm seeing a lot more of communication with the villagers between each other. I feel like New Leaf, they might have removed it, or it just didn't happen as often where the villagers would talk to each other.
Our dog Sunny is very upset because she cannot be on the podcast with us currently.
She's going to try.
Yeah. So, when you're talking about like so who are some of the characters? We got Tom Nook, who basically like owns the island, right?
He owns the island. He's got pockets full of money, and he can go on these endeavors and stuff. And so he kind of started all of this, and he brought Timmy and Tommy, his nephews, to assist And I think Timmy might be very young or something because he seems to not really do much but follow Tommy around.
Right.
And so they kind of run the shop for Tom Nook.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, so you start off with just those three and your two neighbors who come with you. And then as you pay off your loan and do some errands for Tom Nook, you can upgrade the little tent they're in to a town hall area. And that's when Isabel comes back. And she's there kind of as what she did in the previous game where she tells you what your island's rating is. You can change your town tune or your flag with her. And you kind of start unlocking things. And I think there's a lot of stuff that I still haven't seen, but the little clothing shop comes by. There's a plaza where you'll see a visiting character. And then if you buy enough from them or they visit a couple of times, they'll set up shop on the island permanently.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, and then Blathers shows up, the museum curator. So he comes back, opens up his museum, and I think that's everybody. And then you have a few visitors who come depending on the day. There's Sahara, the camel who sells rugs. Daisy, the weird little pig who sells turnips on Sundays. So Joanne, the pig, or warthog looking thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's not showing up. I don't know if she will in the future, but it looks like it's more grandkids that are now showing up. There used to be a lizard that would host bug tournaments and he would eat the bugs that you brought him.
Yeah.
And now there's now I don't know. I've been reading that it's a grandkid, but I don't know if there's any relation. There's now a CJ and Flick that are younger versions of the previous characters that were lizard and beaver, I think is what CJ is. And they just purchase bugs and fish for way more than Tommy and Timmy do.
Okay. So this is like a continuity thing. There are established characters that are coming into this village, and then some maybe sons or grandkids or whatever are
some
showing
new
up
characters. And I hear there's a few new villagers that have been added. The nice thing too is you get to pick your villagers for the most part. I think there's only 3 that I did not get to pick. The first 2 when you get there, and then Tom Nook sends you on an errand to build 3 homes and get more villagers in.
Mm-hmm.
And so while you're visiting some of these random islands in the beginning, you'll see that there's villagers walking around the islands. And you can invite the ones you like over to live on your island. And so I did that with 2 of them. But once you get 2, that third one is reserved for a random character that the game wants to provide you. So there ends up being 3 randoms. I got Hans, who I had in my New Leaf game. I hated him when I first got him in New Leaf, and then he grew on me. And then this time around, I'm like, oh, I don't want to have to like Hans again. Like, I forgot how creepy he looks. I mean, it's the better graphics or something. And so I didn't want him, but then I started reading that you have to accept him to move forward with getting more villagers. So I accepted Hans, and then I like him again. I'm cool with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I don't know if this was in the original games, but there's special events, right?
Yes.
Was that a part of some of the older games?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
I think even Wild World, there was always stuff for the big holidays. They kind of do a little parody of your big holidays. I think like they don't call Halloween. They'll say
Jack-o'-ween.
No. I forget what the previous game called, but there was Jack who had come over and he's big old pumpkin head. And there'd be games fleshed around him and what he's looking for. And then Jingle the reindeer, I think during Christmas is who would show up. They didn't really say Santa Claus. It was like, oh, Jingle Day's coming up or whatever.
Right.
So that kind of stuff. Like even right now with Easter, New Horizons is having Bunny Day. So instead of calling it Easter, they have Bunny Day. And they kind of have the month or weeks leading up to that event be centered around something. So like right now there's Easter eggs everywhere that are popping out of everything, or bunny eggs, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. Because bunnies totally lay eggs.
Yeah.
So these special events, what do you do? Are you collecting stuff?
It depends. Like with tournaments, you're usually trying to get the largest fish or the largest bug, and then you get trophies and you get prizes, and usually these are rarer items that you want to grab. With the seasonal stuff, right now it's looking like with New Horizons, it's new furniture that you can unlock and get. And then just the fun of completing the tasks that were given for that time frame.
Right. I remember playing one of the only type of games that I ever actually got into, which was Simpsons Tapped Out. It was on the phone. It was on iOS and Android. And basically during the year, as you were playing it, they would have special events and like, hey, Easter, yeah, you are collecting, Easter egg donuts or whatever and stuff like that. So I always like when games sprinkle in little like seasonal content. I've always enjoyed that. I think the first game that I ever played that had anything like that was Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast, where they had Halloween and Christmas, where because that was one of the first times that they ever incorporated a real-time clock into video games. And so when the system settings were, keeping up and saying, hey, it's December, the like hub world would change into snow and there would be like Christmas lights and all that stuff. I love that.
Yeah, like right now we've got cherry blossoms in the town. So there's a bunch of that floating around.
And cherry blossoms are
like the pink leaves or blossoms on the trees.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that for Christmas or Easter? Is that an Easter
It's a spring thing because it's
okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
And then I think all that stuff is supposed to disappear on the 11th or something. Yeah, but it totally does change with the seasons.
That's cool. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And so this game, one of the things that I remember really being intrigued by was that real-time clock. And that is a major gameplay mechanic of this game, right?
It is. Yes. The shops have hours. Everything is kind of, but they really gave us a lot to do when there's no open shop, including a little drop box to sell items or empty out your pockets. Late at night if you're a night owl who's playing.
Right.
And
like I would be.
Yeah. And there's a few neighbors that are kind of funny. I was playing around and I saw one of my neighbors going to his house and I was like, oh, I want to go see if he puts his furniture up. So as soon as he closed the door, I went to go open it. And he was, a little thing popped up and said, don't bother me, I'm sleeping. And I was like, oh, it's late.
Yeah. That's cool. I like that, but one of the things that always kept me from playing that game is that real-time clock. Even though it's integral to the game, I never want to be told when I can and can't play the game. And I know for you've always said, oh, it's not really that big of a deal because they give you extra stuff, but they also try to curb a little bit of how much you're playing per day, right?
They're possibly trying to do that with like everything takes a day for it to go through. If you want a staircase up to a higher cliff or a bridge and you pay it off that day, it's not done right away. You have to wait till the next cycle for it to be done. So you can kind of lessen the things that you can do because then you can't build another bridge or another incline or anything like that for that day until the other one's done. But there's a lot of really good stuff you could be doing at night. And again, the shops, even though they're closed, you can still sell items. So I feel like the gameplay isn't stopping. They've given you a lot to do because Tom Nook and Isabel's town hall area is still open. You can still shop at the little catalog machine thing that's in their place. And there's terraforming now, so you can really work on your island, which is what I like to do when everything's closed. And then for really big ticket items that are very expensive, you don't want to put in the Dropbox because Timmy and Tommy take 20% when you do that.
Jerks. Man.
You can just kind of stack your fish or bugs outside of the shop and then just sell them the next day.
Okay. So there is definitely stuff to do.
There's always stuff. Even in the previous games, there was always fishing and catching bugs that you could do. And in this one, visiting islands late at night. I mean, I like to grab enough materials. I used to have too many of them. And then I realized that if I crafted the items that are selling for double the price that day, every day they'll have an item that is a hot item or whatever, and it sells for double. If I craft those and sell them, I make a lot of money depending on how much that item sells for. So I've been using a bunch of my materials. So visiting these islands at night to replenish those materials keeps me busy too.
Okay. And crafting is something new in this game, right?
It is very new. And I thought I would hate it.
Why?
And I don't hate it. Well, because I thought it would be this super tedious thing. I don't like that kind of crafting, I guess, in a game. And because the game, I already liked it the way it was, I thought it would make it worse. It's not that bad. It's just more accomplishment. Like, oh, I went and got all this stuff and I created this thing and it's awesome. And then once I build it, no, I can't remember if I build it, if it's now in my catalog. I think it might be
like a blueprint or something
right,
like
where
that?
you can now order it. The only things you can't order are Nook Mile items. So if I'm spending Nook Miles, which is Tom Nook's other currency.
His own personal cryptocurrency.
Yes, he has his own miles you earn by doing tasks for him on the island. They accumulate, and then you can use those and cash them at the airport to fly. Or at his little machine, you can cash them in for different stuff. And it's 2,000 Nook Miles to go to an island. And so that's mainly what I earn my Nook Miles for. But now that I've paid off my home loan, I've been using them to save up and get my 5-star rating on the island.
So how long did it take you to pay off your loan?
So it was a bunch of different loans. I was able to pay each one off the day I got it.
Mm-hmm.
Until I got to the second to last one, where it was it was a little over $1 million. I paid that one off in 2 days, and then this one was over 2 million bells.
Mm-hmm. And bells are that's the dollars, main, basically.
And that one took me a lot longer because when I hit that one, I realized that was going to take me a while, and I just started focusing on putting bridges and inclines where I wanted them, so I could easily access more parts of the island. So that one has taken me however long it would be. I don't know if I probably did this a few days ago. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. So because of the real-time clock and how directly it is incorporated into the gameplay, there's something called time traveling, which is kind of a big controversy for this game and the community of all the players, right? There's kind of a diverse, it's good, or you're allowed to do it, it's not cheating, or, oh, it's cheating, you're ruining the game by time traveling.
It's interesting because I feel like it's already started to split in some of the groups I'm in, where people who time travel pretty much play with themselves or play with other people who time travel, and people who don't want to play with people who don't time travel.
Right.
Because people who are time traveling are getting all the currency they need. They've built up their islands very quickly, so there was no waiting a day for their incline to be put in or their bridge. A lot of them would put some bells in the bank and move 20 years in the future, so that way they have a ton of interest, and then they would go back in time and then go forward again. So it would just be making money. So to me, I feel like that's absolutely a cheat. But they can play however they want. I don't do it. I wouldn't feel comfortable, or I wouldn't enjoy the game, because to me, I'm going to be playing this for years.
Right.
I see people panicking because they haven't gotten their cherry blossom DIY crafting things, and it's only going to be around in April for these couple of weeks or whatever. And it's all right, not a big deal, because you just wait for the next time it's the season. Same thing with any fish or bugs you missed. I don't let that stuff bother me.
That was one of the things. And so, we didn't really explain time traveling. Time traveling is actually going into the Nintendo Switch system settings and setting the clock of the system forwards or backwards or whatever, changing the actual system settings.
Wild World, you were able to go into a menu and change it in game. And New Leaf had a similar thing where every time you logged on, Isabel would greet you, and then you could tell her, I'd like to change the time, and she would change the time for you for whatever it was. And I would change it usually for daylight savings, or I would always have my previous game a little bit ahead so that I could sell things in the morning when I woke up, because I work.
Right. You didn't want it on a 1-to-1 scale of the real world, but
I wanted it just a little bit ahead so that I could actually go to the shop, because the shop had weird hours. Right. And with this one, you can still make money again after hours by dropping it in the Dropbox. And in this game, there is no menu asking you to change the time, or if you need to, because it's all based on your system time and it's going to be accurate. So I felt like they tried to remove that factor, but and I wouldn't mess with my system settings that way every time. So I don't feel like it's an in-game thing they're allowing you to do. I think it's something that people just want to take advantage of.
Right. And that would be considered cheating, because it's not part of the game. I feel very strongly about it, even though I don't play. So When this game was coming out, eh, and I remember you were super excited every time, a little piece of information would come out, we would watch it and you get really excited. Now that the game's out and you've been playing it for over 100 hours in the last couple of weeks, what is your favorite part about the game so far?
I really like the stuff that they have added for the villagers. And I think they're going to be adding more. I noticed that they do these little updates. Um, but the villagers are just so much more active, and they stop in the middle of the town and they're like lifting weights or doing weird yoga stances. And so I really like that. Now, the other thing I super, super like is the museum. They have the 3 exhibits for fossils, bugs, and fish. And it is a very pretty museum. So the game itself is very, very good looking. It's very crisp, and you have this breeze that blows it really strong sometimes, and you can just hear the trees rustling. And you see the little leaves rustling. It is a very pretty game. And when you go into the museum, they've set it up so that the fossils are in really cool positions. They have one, I forget what dinosaur it is, but it's like he's leaping up in the air. And I just thought that was much more creative, and it's prettier. Everything's shiny. You can go into the fish exhibit, and there's lots of, there's multiples of the same fish instead of there just being one of each. In really cool creative tanks. And then the bugs are similar. They've got like a butterfly room. There's just a bunch of different butterflies in there. And they didn't have it that way before. It used to be like 3 big rooms, and it was just filled with random or whatever bugs they had. Although in Wild World, I think it was, they had the scorpion and the tarantula fighting, or like on a little duel in the museum, which was kind of fun. Yeah. So the museum's very nice.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I noticed about the game when we would watch like release footage and stuff like that, is because whenever I look at a game, especially Nintendo games, I kind of nitpick them because Nintendo's known for a lot of polish in games, but their hardware is kind of the worst out of like the 3 major, gaming companies, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony. Their hardware has never had any aliasing, and so you would always get those lots of jaggies, and that was one of the things why I never really liked picking up my 3DS or the DS, is because it would always just look so bad. But whenever you show me the screenshots or little videos, or just even showing me the screen on the Switch is a lot more powerful, and it is not just a handheld system, it's also technically a console. So it's got that hardware power that can make everything a lot more crisp, a lot more rounded edges, and it looks just so much better than 3DS version.
Oh, it looks really good. And then I was going to mention something else. They'd added this clothing wand, and I didn't know that it was tied to your clothing at all. I had this recipe for like a bamboo wand, and I was ignoring it for a while, and then I had a thing to earn more Nook miles if you do more DIY crafts or whatever. So I was like, oh, I'll just do this bamboo wand because it's easy to make. And so I make it, and I'm like, what is it? Because it's a tool. So I equipped it, and I start swinging it around, and I went over to my wardrobe, and the wardrobe said, would you like to edit your wand costumes? And I'm like, what? And so I usually will have 2 or 3 go-to outfits that I wear all the time. And in this game, again, it looks so nice that I've come up with a few more. So I like being able to tie those to a wand and change into them without having to run to your mannequin and swap it. Because in the last game, you could put them on a mannequin, and then you would activate the mannequin to swap your clothes. Okay. So in this one, you can kind of wave the wand. It's not a technical change of clothes. The way the game treats it a little bit differently. So in the game, it still recognizes your actual clothes. And when you wave the wand, it's more like a costume or a covering. Okay. Unfortunately, it keeps your clothes tied to the wand, so I can't mix those clothing again with another outfit, which is a bummer. Can you buy
multiple
But I can buy multiples,
clothing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just have never done that. I only wanted one, but I'm like, all right, I guess I'll just have to buy multiples. But I think it's super useful for when you're trying to be festive. Like right now, they have all their festive furniture, and so I crafted some Easter balloons and wreath for the door, and I put that up on the door and put the balloons out in front of my house, and did an egg fence around and added balloons to the town hall area. So I was like, I'll take all that down after Bunny Day, but it kind of helps in the gameplay that you're decorating your island for the event as
Yeah,
well.
that's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. So even though this game's just a couple weeks old, there's been, you said at least one update, right?
I think there's been 4 updates.
Wow. Okay.
So one of them did patch up a glitch where people were duplicating a really expensive item and then just selling a bunch of them. I think somebody had a crown and they started duplicating it, and then it makes everything real cheap because in this game you can play with others.
Mm.
And I'm in a group on Facebook that is Animal Crossing New Horizons no time traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And so usually when I invite people to my island, I will invite those people, or I'll want to go to their islands because I know we haven't been playing around with the time and that we're not going to charge fees. Like there's some ridiculous people that like come to my island for 10,000 bells or whatever bells, or I'm looking for these items. You can come visit. And it just became real cheap because these people feel like bells don't matter anymore because they have so many of them. And the rest of us are like, no, we're still paying off our loans.
Yeah.
And we just want to play on others' islands without being required to do anything else for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So one of the last things that I only personally wrote down as a question would be DLC. Do you see this game having DLC, first of all? And then if so, what would you want out of it?
I don't think there's anything in particular that I would want out of it other than them adding more islands. I really hope that they add more. So the islands are interesting because there's multiple islands that are very common.
Mm-hmm.
So you go spend your Nook miles, you go to these islands that you're never going to return to again. You always visit a new island. So I always knock down all the trees and take everything off of the island, especially at night because there's tarantulas that'll spawn. If you get rid of all the rocks, if you get rid of all the rocks and everything that'll spawn a different type of insect, on most islands you can do this. If it's a 1 or 2 tier island and there's bugs spawning, you can get rid of that stuff and then catch tarantulas. I usually won't fill my pockets with them because it's just so time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
But even catching a few of them is very helpful. And so I'll do that. And they have a couple of special items. So there's one that's Money Island. And when you arrive, you know it's Money Island because there's this huge moat around this little island in the center of this island. Mm-hmm. And you go around to the other side, there's a rock blocking your way. So you break the rock, go across. And then there's, I think, 5 rocks that each have pouches of money that shoot out of them. So that one's fun because you just get about 50,000 bells and then you go back to your island. And then there's Tarantula Island. So not one that you have terrifying. To create. It's a flat island. It's similar to Money Island, except it has a very thin moat that you can just hop over. You don't need to use your little launching pole thing. Mm-hmm. And there's usually 4 or 5 tarantulas running around the center of that at all times. That one's pretty creepy, but then I've learned that if I put my net away, they're pretty docile. It's only when I get my net out that they're going to attack. So I haven't been to Tarantula Island with that trick. So I'd like to try that. And then they have Emperor Butterfly Island. So that's one that's another flat island. And it's a ton of hybrid flowers or blue flowers, very rare flowers that you normally don't see on your island. Mm-hmm. It's a very pretty, pretty island. And it's just a ton of blue butterflies flying around. Or more expensive. They're over 2,500 bells, I think. And so you can catch a bunch of those, get some flowers, take them back to your island. So that's a pretty island. There's also... I think those 3 are the ones that I like the most. I know there's also a bamboo island that some people like, but I've visited that one enough times. Mm-hmm. And I have bamboo on my island that I'm like, I don't need to keep visiting this one. That's a good one to turn into a tarantula island if you can. Mm-hmm. But if they could release more themed islands like those, I think that would be super fun.
Yeah, that sounds cool, and I'm sure that there's
there's one that's a trash island, and I only visited that one once. And you go there, and everything you fish out of the rivers or the ocean is just trash. So it's cans, boots, and tires. And I think that's really funny. Like I want more funny things like that are like, oh, there's only this island.
It's pretty creative.
And then there's another island that's very beneficial. You only catch large, expensive fish. I haven't been to that one, but there's others who said they've been there. So they're kind of you have to fish, you have to look around to figure out if it's a unique island or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like more of those. I think that's pretty fun.
Yeah, that would sound awesome if there's a ton of different ones and it's all
Right.
randomized and stuff like
And
that.
especially unique ones being in there every once in a while would be
Mhm.
fun.
All right. Well, that's pretty much all I had planned. Is the one thing that I did want to talk about is you apparently have a Twitter account.
Yes.
What is your username?
It is 3_nails. So the number 3_nails.
NAILS.
NAILS. Yes.
Okay.
It's a very old one that I only had to support my favorite band.
Mm-hmm. Which is
Blue October.
Okay.
And so they were doing some like I don't know what it was. You were earning rewards for helping promote them at that time in 2012 or 13. And me and my sister had gotten some free posters, and they said you can keep any extras, but we'd like you to put them up in cafes. So we were running around Redlands and Loma Linda and putting up these posters in cafes. We had a lot of fun doing it, and then I would tweet any of their updates that they said tweet these or whatever, and I would hashtag them. So that was really all I used it for. And then I realized that it was the easiest way for me to share my Animal Crossing stuff, because I went in there and I'm like, how do I get my screenshots and stuff?
Yeah.
And it would let me upload it to either Facebook or Twitter. And I'm like, I'm very serious on my Facebook, so I don't want to be, crowding that with Animal Crossing, but I will absolutely crowd my Twitter
Yeah.
with Animal Crossing. And then I just go on there and take what I want and share it to my Facebook groups.
Awesome. So at the number 3_NAILS,
That's
3_nails. Do you have anything else you want to add? Or possibly some advice to people who pick this up for the first time who've never played an Animal Crossing game before, maybe like me? What advice would you give to someone?
I don't know that I have a whole lot of advice. I mean, listening to the dialogue, if you don't want to play the game right, where you're listening to the dialogue and actually following the gameplay, it's maybe not the best for you. Tom Nook spells it out. He's there for you to ask. I've had a few people just jump onto the Facebook groups and be like, I just got this game. What do I do? And it's like, well, play the game.
Yeah.
But earning bells, saving bells, making sure there's some in your savings at all times is very smart, because when the stores are closed, you don't get bells back right away. That Dropbox, they get put into your savings account the next day. So having some in there, maybe 20 or 30,000. So if you have a project after hours, you can use those bells toward Nook or whatever.
Okay.
And then catching or fishing is the best way to make bells, really. Fishing, listen, or you have to turn the sound all the way up. That's what best way to catch fish. If you're watching the bob, it's easy to hit the button at the wrong time because you're thinking it's going to pull it under. Or if it does pull it under and it's a very rare fish, sometimes you're not as reactive. You really need to press it when the sound happens. And
sound is a big thing in this game too, right?
It is. And it was in the previous ones. I always fished with the sound as high as I could have it. It is the best way to catch those rarer fish.
Okay. And also playing with the music on and realizing that there is...
Yeah, I had no idea. So apparently there's been like hourly music to Animal Crossing, but generally when I play, I try to keep the volume down unless I'm fishing in those previous games. And so I would keep the volume low because I just want to play my game and I don't want anybody to bug me. So I wouldn't have it loud. And this time around, I've been having my Switch like pretty loud. And I'm like, oh, this music is fantastic. Like when I wake up in the morning, that's my favorite song. I think it's the 8 o'clock one. It's super snazzy, like rocky type thing a little bit. And it's a very fun song to be playing in the morning. But yeah, very, very cool game. And it gives you a lot of creative outlets. So somebody who likes to create things, you have a lot of that in here. You can create your own outfits, and I've always liked designing stuff in the previous game as well. You get to design, and here you also get to design and work on your island. So maybe that's why it's so attractive, is it's a creative outlet for a lot of people. Yeah,
and especially with so many games, trying to do that and doing it very poorly. I've always saw Animal Crossing as one of those games where it's so unique, it's so different than anything else out there.
Innocent, too.
Yeah.
Like it's super innocent, even when it isn't. It's very cute. There was one of my neighbors, Benjamin, who I did invite to my island. He was super angry in the plaza and he was stomping around. And I'm like, oh, what happened, Benjamin? So I go talk to him, and I like that they named the person who angered them. In the previous games, they didn't. So he apparently got in an argument with Bengal, who's another one I invited. And
I'm guessing he is a tiger.
Bengal is a tiger,
Okay.
and Benjamin is a dog. So Benjamin's upset, and he's like, oh, Bengal, she's such a potato chip. And it was just a funny insult, and he was super mad at her. And so he just stomped around for a bit, and it was just kind of funny.
Are you able to go reconcile them?
No, there's no reconciling.
Oh.
They'll just stay angry for a little bit. I kept talking to him, and then he eventually got better, and I just gave him something.
Oh, okay.
I kind of like that too. You can now randomly give your neighbors stuff. I think one or two times a day, you can give them something. And sometimes if you give them something nice, I don't know, they always feel like they got to return whatever you give them. If you give them food or flowers, they don't give you anything back. You give them furniture or clothing, and they will say like, oh, here's your thank you gift. And they give me 2,000 bells or whatever. And I'm like, okay, like I just sold you something. It's weird, but yeah, it's a fun game. And you can now like give them full yards. The island is so much bigger. So that's what I'm working on right now, is fencing in and making the island a little prettier.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one other thing is when you were talking about terraforming and picking up like flowers from the different islands that you go visit and stuff like that, are you able to plant? Like you've been talking about like knocking down trees and all that stuff. Can you fix what you broke? Can you plant stuff?
You can. And that's what is my saving grace right now, because I have been knocking stuff out of the way on my main island. Like I just get irritated and I don't want to go make a flimsy axe real quick or a stone axe. So I'll use my actual axe and I'll just knock down trees. But you can also buy seedlings at the store to put in new trees. Eventually I'd like to have a fruit orchid. A lot of people do that. And I'm like, I just don't. Sometimes I think the trees are in the way. I have so many buildings. I'm like, this isn't where I want them. But yeah, you can absolutely transplant a lot of stuff as well. Like the flowers around my house are red, white, and blue. And I try to theme things. So I'll slowly be moving across the island and making it look better.
All right. Well, our dog Sunny is throwing a tantrum for not being on the podcast. So we're going to go help her figure out what's going on. So I wanted to thank Elizabeth for being on the podcast. Again, her Twitter account is @3_nails. Go follow her and like all her posts, all her wonderful Animal Crossing posts. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Game or Die podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Moore, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.